Hey guys, my new sketchbook, Dumb Shark, is finally out.
That's great, Fratello. Congrats. Eric, what do you think?
Wow, Matteo. This book has really changed how I think about art. The style, the details, the inking techniques, not to mention the colors. Everything on this book is off the chart. You are so far ahead of any other artist, especially me. I know I always say I don't like your Mr. Freeze book, but that's actually a lie. I was just jealous of your incredible talent because I love everything you do, and sadly, I know deep in my heart that I'll never be at your extraordinary level. You truly are the best artist on planet Earth. This book is a game changer, man. I think everyone out there should go and order Matteo's new art book, Dumb Shark, before it sells out.
Gee willikers, Eric. That was an incredible endorsement. You really made me want to buy it. How can I get my hands on it?
You can find it on www.essentialsequential.com, or if you're in Europe, you can order it on www.pulps.fr.
Wow, Eric. I didn't know you were such a big fan of mine. Thank you. I really don't need to add anything else. You said it all.
What an asshole.
Wait, what?
I would ask everyone listening to leave a comment what you think about getting back to a blogger message board style of seeing art and interacting with artists.
I think by way of like how YouTube and engagement and all that kind of stuff works, it's really, really smart for Shawn to say, hey, comment whether or not we're going to end up going back into the blogger days, right? But a part of me that wears black all the time is dead inside.
Which is basically 97% of you. But yeah, go ahead.
You're giving me too much credit. It's like 99% of me. At the end of the day, you know, like who gives whether or not that's the way people think that you were going to go back into it, blah, 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 blah. If that's the way that you want to go, right? If that's the presence that you want to have online, if that's the moves that you feel works for you.
If you're a basically that always needs approval from other people, go ahead. No worries, Shawn.
This is the Inkpulp podcast. No, he does like a Stoic practice. I assumed he was reading that same book as you.
I suspect that he reads like a version of it, right? Maybe not necessarily the same book. All right, here's because we started off in the new year conveniently. This is January 3rd. Be ruthless to the things that don't matter. And this is by Seneca. How many have laid waste to your life when you weren't aware of what you were losing? How much was wasted in pointless grief, foolish joy, greedy desire, and social amusements? How apropos. How little of your own was left to you. You will realize you are dying before your time. That's
dark.
Depressing.
It's morbid.
A little bit, right?
Yeah, it's dark.
Yeah. That's a weird way to start off our first podcast, January 3rd, 2024. Gentlemen.
What
up? One more year around the sun with you, bozos.
Happy New Year. I mean, this is gonna be coming out in probably September 2024.
This will be January 1st, 2025.
Yeah. How far ahead are we, by the way? Are we 7 episodes ahead, 10 episodes ahead?
I'd have to check. I think we're about 5.
Oh, all right. I was a tiny bit too optimistic.
Well, we were, but then when Matteo and I were in Abu Dhabi, we missed 2 weeks and we fell back some.
Yeah, so screw this podcast is what you guys were saying. Enjoy the experiences of life. Here's what the thing that I just read off. Here's a basic breakdown to it. One of the hardest things to do in life is to say no to innovations, to requests, to obligations, to the stuff that everyone else is doing. This hits me in a profound way. Even harder is saying no to certain time-consuming emotions: anger, excitement, distraction, obsession, or lust. None of these impulses feels like a big deal by itself, but they become commitment like anything else. If you're not careful, these are precisely the impositions that will overwhelm and consume your life. Do you ever wonder how you can get some of your time back, how you can feel a little bit less busy? Start by learning the power of no, or no thank you, no, I'm not going to get caught up in that, no, I just can't do that right now. It may hurt some feelings.
Or the all-powerful fuck no.
Fuck no. Or fuck you directly. They won't bother you again anymore.
That's it.
Generally speaking, your reputation will be a little damaged by that, but you know.
Yeah. And this is to your guys' point. It says it may turn people off. No shit, if you tell them fuck off. It may take some hard work, but the more you say no to the things that don't matter, and by the way, that needs to each person that needs definition, right? You need to reflect on exactly what matters and what doesn't matter to you. The more you can say yes to the things that do matter, this will let you live and enjoy your life, the life that you want. So I think that's very appropriate, especially in the space that we're in these days.
I agree.
So there's a funny thing, and we'll get on to whatever it is that Shawn learned to read today, right? Is it one of my son's favorite books is this thing called, it's called...
Mein Kampf.
Is it dinosaurs and construction? Yeah. I've been teaching him
You're instructing him
grade.
since
the 5-year-old version of that.
Since a really young age.
Yeah. He has an internal hate for half of himself.
My God. Oh my God.
One of the things that I've been paying attention to is how things suddenly start just becoming the normalized thing that permeates through my life, and it's very small, right? And I remember, Maddie, how did you and I meet before we met on in person in San Diego? That was like pre social media, right? Did you find my blog somewhere?
We met on Grindr. You remember?
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah.
No. Oh, so the first time we met, it was in San Diego. We met in person.
Yeah.
I stopped by your table. I think it was either San Diego 2007 or 2008. It was my first show in the States, so I decided to stop by at your table, back then you had your Enter the Mandarin, the sketchbook though, the artist edition basically.
Yeah.
So I bought that I gave you the issue number 1 of Hyperkinetic, which was my book that had recently come out.
Wait, Eric, you know what's funny about that? Didn't you put that together for a talk you were giving at my school? That's interesting.
Yeah. It's a very small connected world. But here's the point I was trying to make. Before we knew each other in person, which is a big deal, right? We found each other's work online, but it was the best way I can describe it is you had to engage in finding people's work. Right. So when I figured out who Matteo was, found him online. I think, did you have a blog back then, Matteo? Did you have Blogger? Did you have DeviantArt? No? DeviantArt.
Yeah. No, I had a blog as well. So you actually started following me after I gave you that book. So me giving you that book was the beginning of everything. And after I remember, it was July, because it was San Diego. And then in December of that year, you wrote me an email because you saw what I did was that I saw that everybody in San Diego had a sketchbook. So I did my own. I printed my own sketchbook, and I got a booth in Lucca for the show. So for every client that would buy a sketchbook, I would do a sketch, like a full sketch.
Yeah.
And I would post them all online. So you went on my blog and I just released all those sketches, and you decided to contact me telling me how much you love those sketches.
Yeah. It's amazing. I mean, I that was, for me, finding artists that way felt like, again, you were just engaging, right? You were like actively putting time, energy, and resource and finding the new people. And it's not me living in that past, probably in part. But here's what I've come to see just in general, right? It's not talking about like how we engage with people, but suddenly things that we take as our day to day, you don't even realize that it's permeated your life. So Shawn's starting to do, by the way, this is not a criticism of you, Shawn. You're just rolling into whatever it is that's necessary for these algorithms. Suddenly something outside is starting to tell you, hey, in order to be quote unquote successful in this space, you have to start doing it like this. And it's small little incremental changes. They just move the slider on you little by little. And then by the time you realize what you're doing, you go like, fuck, man, I'm so fucking busy. Or gosh, this is so much to do. And you go like, wait a minute, I didn't do that. I didn't actively do that for myself. I just took the menu and said like, I guess this is what people do. So I'll just take A, B, and C, and I'll move forward with my life. I'm trying to. You guys. Yeah, go ahead, Shawn. Go ahead.
I was going to say, can I speak to that? Because
Yeah.
you're right. And I made a decision to go along with that with a purpose in mind. And the purpose in mind was to grow the exposure of me and my work. And I have significantly backed off of posting like I used to. I mean, I might post 3 days. No, but let me explain. I might post 3 days a week now, where I would post religiously 7 days a week before.
Yeah.
Because I found success in that. Because I had no work coming in, I had no money coming in.
Yeah.
So now I have jobs, and I remember it was a shift where I was so overwhelmed and so busy trying to keep up the jobs, trying to keep up with social media, where I asked myself, why am I posting? And it's like, oh, all right, I remember why I started to post. So now that I have the work, let me ease up on that area. And my goal is very much like you, to bring that to my website when it's up and really back off the social media.
Yeah.
And
By the way, this is not. I mean, I understand.
Sorry to interrupt, Eric. Just a really quick
Matty.
thing.
Go.
Shawn, does Instagram still has the program that they had, like, I don't know, a year ago? The program with reels and all that stuff.
Where they pay you?
When they pay you. Do they still have it?
No, they got rid of it. They got rid of it. Now what they'll do is they will pay you if you allow them to put a commercial in the middle of your reel. And I have zero interest in that.
Okay, gotcha.
Okay, so it's not a condemnation of for whatever reason people are doing it. I love the idea that you're like, okay, in order for this to benefit my initiative, I actively need to do this, right? There's some thought behind it, yeah? But there are some people, and again, this is talking very broadly, where they don't even understand why suddenly that became important. Does that make sense?
Right. Yeah, it makes
I think
total
those
sense.
are the ones, and I'm guilty of this myself, where I go like, oh, I need to start. Oh, I'm seeing people post a lot, and that feels really good, and you know what I mean. Oh, it's so cool to see any and all of that, and then I start doing it by proxy, not because it's natural or organic for me. Yeah. And then that's when it started to become really super heavy, and you don't even know how heavy it is until the end. You don't realize you travel 300 miles. This is a bad analogy, but take it with a grain of salt. You travel 300 miles, or 2,000 miles from like point A to point Z. And for every single one of those miles, people are piling on things into the cargo area of your ride that you didn't ask them to put on there, but whatever, you just take it on, right? So by the time you get to the end, you're like, holy crap, I took on so much weight that I didn't need to. And it wasn't malicious, by the way. It wasn't like people going, you must do it. It's nothing like that. It just starts to naturally happen until you take stock of like, why is that happening? You know, for me, near the end of last year, I started thinking about all the things that I took on, or I'm like, that doesn't feel good because that's not really aligned to the thing that I want to do. People are telling me that's an avenue.
Right.
But I don't think that feels right. I don't take it immediately off the table. I go and try it and I realize, oh, that actually doesn't feel good. The ones that I don't care for is the one that I actually did to myself without even thinking. Right.
Right.
Yeah. That's the one like, whoa, that just happened. I'm just picking up the phone because I'm scrolling through because I have 5 to 10 minutes to kill or whatever it is. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right.
Those little things I'm trying to be that much more aware about. Anyway.
Yeah. I remember
saying no to
you
a lot of
weren't
things.
on the show, but I spoke about something similar on the episode with Michelle Asarasakorn, Sasuke.
Yeah.
Oh, good job.
I don't know if you guys remember, but I was telling the story. I'm trying to make it as quick as possible because I've already told it on the show. But when I studied in Milan, like I had basically the school would start at 9:00. Lessons would start at 9:30, and I would arrive at the Milan train station at 9, and I had a decent amount of time to get to the school. Getting to the school will take me 20 minutes. All right, so I had 30 minutes to get there, so everything was fine. But the Milan station is so, like, everybody in there is so in a rush that automatically, without even knowing, you start running because everybody is running, you know? And that's I don't
herd
know, what you
mentality.
said reminded me of that, because by proxy, just being around people that were all in a rush, I would start feeling a rush for no reason at all because I wasn't, you know?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
it's
yeah.
funny. I think it's a pretty
Yeah.
natural human mechanism, you know?
Yeah, it's part of being in a herd. It's the herd mentality.
Yeah, but also because we're, you know, eyes on the front of our heads as opposed to the side of our heads, as far as that herd mentality is concerned. Like,
Well, yours
it's an
are
opportunity
almost
to-
on the side, to be honest with you. But whatever.
almost, yeah. In my embryo stage, almost prevented me. Hey, by the way, did you know that that's a natural progression from embryo to fully grown, like whatever, like?
Well,
to-
you
to-
look
before
like a
birth?
kind of
It
embryo,
tra-
so it makes sense.
Your eyes
By the way,
travel from
after
the side
this,
of your head.
I gotta tell you something really, really funny, but continue, sorry.
It's fucking gross. So it travels from the side of your head to the front of your face. Did you know that?
Was that, sorry, I missed it.
Yeah. No, I said that your eyes at the embryonic stage travels from the side of your head close to the very,
Oh,
very
yeah,
far.
I-
Oh,
back.
yeah,
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 that
yeah,
makes
yeah,
sense.
yeah, yeah.
That
Yeah,
makes
yes,
sense.
yes, absolutely.
I forgot
Yours
the point that I was
stopped
trying to make.
at a
But the
certain
point,
point.
okay, here it is. Here it is. So I think there's an opportunity here, at least for me, moving forward. I don't know if you guys are in for it or if you guys are down to do it. But it's an opportunity for me to take a look at the things that I'm doing now and going like, I don't know if I want to, like, why am I doing that? But, you know, be analytical about the amount of energy I'm spending on anything. And then if it's not really a good fit, start training my way out of it.
Yeah.
If that makes sense, either emotionally,
like that.
psychologically, physically, right?
I like that a lot. Yeah.
So yeah, anyway, I think it's going to keep me productive in my 2024 quest of getting as much stuff out as I can. Speaking of, this is going to be out 5 weeks from now. I'm starting to. We were talking about Blogger earlier, or Blogspot. I started my own blog on my website.
I saw. I got the
think-
email.
I think I'm going to start doing things there
think it's
almost
great.
exclusively, 98% of the time.
I think it's a great idea.
And just start doing it the way I used to, because I think as far as the frequency, the energy expenditure that it takes, that's a little bit more my speed.
I have a
And so-
hope that
Yeah.
that is what we are going to return back to. I'm hoping now that with all the AI stuff and people seeing all the dangers and the effects of what social media has done to us over the past decade or so, are going to have people moving back to a more blog and message board style, like you said, seeking out what they want to see instead of being fed what they want to see. I have a hope that that's what we're going back to, and I'm building just like you are, my future into that, because I do want to get away from all that other stuff too. I think
Awesome.
I think you're right, and I think we do need to think about why we do things more. That's something about that Abu Dhabi trip put me back into the present. It grounded me, and I think
You
I
want to
said
talk
that
a little bit
before.
more about the Abu Dhabi trip, Shawn?
Sure.
No, I was just kidding, because you talked for like 55
fine.
minutes
I know.
about
I
Abu
was.
Dhabi
I know. I
last
was
time.
just joking. I was joking. No, but and I've made some healthy changes, and I feel good. I'm excited about this year.
And I think, anyway, I was
awesome,
gonna, what do you call it? I was a shill for the website for a bit. So go to ericnetti.com. There is, a pop-up will come up as far as subscription is concerned. Please go subscribe. Every time I post something, and there's an email blast that gets sent to you. Critical is that you make sure that I don't end up in your spam box or you end up missing out on it. But another feature, potentially for the sake of community, and I don't know how you guys feel about this. I never put a lot of stock into it until I started realizing I think it's one of those important things. Another feature inside the website is an old-fashioned message board.
Yeah, that's what I was just saying. I hope we get back to message boards and blogs. Exactly.
Yeah. And so I'm putting that up in my website so that people can come in, chit chat for a little bit, but not necessarily be committed to always be active in that space, right? It's going to be primarily art centric, which I really, really love. Anyway, we're rolling those features out very, very slowly, at least to the point where I'm comfortable and I feel like, hey, that works enough. You know, it might not be frictionless, but certainly, you know, less frictionful than fucking social media. So keep an eye out for that.
If you want to, it might be a good idea to make a short little commercial, if you will, just a little video of you that we can put on at the front or middle or back of every one of these podcast episodes. And as my site's ready, I want to do the same thing to just get people more going to our sites. Sure. I think that would be a great idea.
That'd be awesome.
That's fine. Yeah. All right.
And Eric, I wanted to ask you something. Sorry. Okay. And I wanted to ask you something first, and then I'll go with the joke. But are you? So the website is already running.
Real quick.
Yeah.
Real quick. I just want to say, everyone. I would ask everyone listening to leave a comment what you think about getting back to a blogger message board style of seeing art and interacting with artists. All right, go ahead, Matteo.
So my question was, are your websites already going and running at the moment, or they're about to? Mm-hmm. Okay. So
no, it's already live. You can go to ericandeddy.com.
Okay. So did you use like a pre-made model? Because I'm thinking about it, and I'm talking with my girlfriend about this, and she knows a little bit about this stuff. So she told me that usually what people do is that they use pre-existing models and just go from there. Or are you doing it from scratch?
Yeah. No, I use the pre-existing one, right? So you can there's a bunch of different services now that make it so easy to get up and running for a very minimal fee. Which is, you know, you can either go to Squarespace, you can go to Wix. Me personally, I'm at Wix because features wise, there was a lot more that I wanted, you know. And so it's up and running. You just buy the domain, you know.
Yeah. And are you doing it all by yourself, or are you using somebody in order to do this?
I'm
or
using
this
somebody.
services? Okay, you're using somebody. Okay, gotcha.
Matteo, to answer your questions, mine's being built right now. It's going to be built into Squarespace, I believe. My friend Alan, who did all my instruction video stuff, is putting it together. But I'm basing it on some stuff I learned from us recording with Carl and some conversations I had with Eric. So the idea is he's going to have this like template built. And he's mirroring my website for Zoe. So if it's something you want to hop on, he doesn't charge too much, but if it's something you want to do, I can get you in contact with him, and he can kind of mirror what he's done for
that'd be
us
awesome
as well.
That'd be awesome. It's something that I absolutely want to do, and so I want to watch yours and other people that already have them, just to have a clear idea of what I want to have there, so that I don't have to once comes the time to talk to the person who's got to do it, I already know what to tell him, instead of, I know, let me think about it, or what do you think, all that kind of stuff.
That's smart.
Oh, yeah.
Cool.
That's really super smart.
Absolutely.
Good.
And,
right, so
the funny thing.
Before you get to the joke.
Go.
Wait. Before you get to the joke, Shawn, I think by way of like how YouTube and engagement and all that kind of stuff works, it's really, really smart for Shawn to say, hey, comment whether or not we're going to end up going back into the blogger days, right? But a part of me, the asshole part of me that wears black all the time, is dead inside.
Which is basically 97% of you. But yeah, go ahead.
You're giving me too much credit. It's like 99% of me. So I think at the end of the day, like, who gives a shit? Like, who gives a shit whether or not that's the way people think that you were going to go back into it, blah, 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 blah. If that's the way that you want to go, right? If that's the presence that you want to have online, if that's the moves that you feel works for you.
If you're a pussy, basically, that always needs approval
pussy
from other people, go ahead. No worries, Shawn. No worries.
Look, I'm doing it regardless. I just thought it would be interesting to hear some outside opinions on the matter, to get feedback and get the engagement. on the podcast. That's all.
You're not wrong, Shawn. I think you're actually maximizing for the best version of engagement. What I'm saying is like, don't, generally just care less.
I agree.
Care
with
less
that.
about the freaking outside looking in. There's very few things that you're going to do that's so detrimental, that's so like dehumanizing that you're like, I need people's advice on this. And if you can't distinguish between bad and good, I don't know what you're doing on the planet. But it is to say, go do the thing as an artist that makes you feel like it best represents your work. If it is social media, good luck to you. I'll give you as much support as I possibly can from over here. But for me, and it sounds like for us, we're going to start investing a little bit more in the stuff that we want to do as we see fit, as opposed to being told, hey, this is the way to go, Yep.
Yeah,
All right.
absolutely.
Funny story time, Matteo. Go ahead.
Funny story. It's really short, actually. But for New Year's Eve, we're celebrating with friends, with a bunch of friends. And, recently, like over the past 2 months, more and more people have been, talking to me about asking me about the podcast, because they keep seeing the reels on Instagram and on Facebook and blah, blah, blah. So they were like, so what are those, like, are interviews and stuff like that? Or someone else know what podcasting is, so they would be just, oh, so you're doing a podcast now? So they're starting asking me a question. And a friend of mine wanted to ask something, and I don't remember exactly what he wanted to know, but at a certain point, it was like, so he wanted to ask me something about a specific episode, and he's like, so the guy who looks like you is a comic book artist as well? And I was like, oh yeah. And how about the black guy? And I was like, the black guy? So I told him, there's no black guy on the show unless there's a guest who's black. They're convinced that you're black. I don't know why. Like, to be honest, we don't see a lot of Filipinos, and we don't have a lot of black people in Italy yet. So probably that's why they can't distinguish. But yeah. So you're a black dude,
I think that's,
for my Italian friends.
I think that's very charming. I think that's endearing. Well, truth be told, I identify as black. You know what I mean? So multiple times in my
Eric
career, that
Dolezal
brings me any sort of advantage. I think if that gets me better consideration as far as college admissions are concerned, I'll identify as black. Anyway.
Maybe, Matteo, is it possible they just saw his soul on the screen and they didn't mean black like African American? They meant like just pitch black.
Yeah. They were talking about the inside of Eric. Yeah.
Jesus. How's the I saw that the Todd McFarlane episode is kicking some serious ass as far as like viewership is concerned.
Oh my god.
Yeah. It's by far our biggest, and our subscriptions went up a healthy amount too.
Yeah. And I love how Jamie captured the right moment, especially with the second reel, the one about like, I don't matter in my best day I'm a 0, in my worst day I'm a 0, that kind of stuff.
Matteo,
yep,
I chose that moment. Jamie didn't know what to choose.
Oh, really?
So I watched the episode and I was like, I gave him like 3 moments I thought would be good, and that's the one.
Well,
he picked
great
out
job,
there.
brother.
Okay, Maddie. Now that you know that Shawn picked it, is it not as cool?
No,
It's
Just as
it's still
cool
great.
or more cool?
It's still great. I was just really surprised that it was that smart. I was unexpecting that.
Oh yeah. Okay, so there it is.
It's a new year. It's a new Shawn. All right, we're gonna have smart Shawn this year.
Speaking of New Year, Shawn learned how to read this year. You guys,
did. I did.
Whoa, learn is a big word. It's getting there.
No, like. Yeah, but I mean, I didn't say he had full control of like his reading capacity. I'm just saying like he started. So to give context, in 2019, 2018, when did the pandemic wall come down? 2020? 2020? Okay, so we're somewhere around there. Shawn, we all got on the call. Me, Matteo, and Shawn got on the call. And like, well, we're going to have, it feels like this is going to be short, but also I don't know if it's going to be as short as we think. So we all started on like our journeys. So Matteo's like, well, I'm going to think about, and this was the beginning parts. By the way, you shared that PDF with us, you fucking monster. Those pages look great. Congratulations,
thanks,
man.
man.
I hope you find your way through that.
Really
So
nice.
you started
Really
formulating the story for that then. You said, hey, I'm going to try this. I'm going to see how, I'm going to get through it for the first time. I was already in the middle of like doing Arcathena stuff. I said, hey, I'm going to continue this and take this to the bitter end. And Shawn was like, I'm at a loss. Right? I'm at a loss what to do while the pandemic wall is down. And so I said, well, me and Matteo was like, as friends, we were concerned. We said, well, Shawn, what do you don't have anything that you want to try for your life? And so 20, 30 minutes go by. We were talking about everything, learning how to ride a bike. Shawn doesn't know how to ride a bike, right? Like, so like
Learning how to count, he clearly doesn't know how to.
Yeah. He doesn't understand the difference between semen and like sperm. So we were like, whoa, we need to talk about that.
Wait.
Quick.
What?
Sometimes
There's a
he doesn't
difference?
understand the difference between semen and water. Just so you know.
So he drinks them both equally. So there's a lot of stuff in there. There's a laundry list of stuff. But here's the part that really, so we came up with a list, right? We wrote it for Shawn. It was maybe 5 or 6 really strong, hey, if you're going to work on something for the next X amount of years, here's a list. We typed it all up. We sent it to Shawn, and we don't hear back from him for like a couple of days. And we're like, hey, so we follow up. Hey, Shawn, what about that list, that we sent? And he says, guys, I would love to read that list, but that's another
I
thing
drank
that I
too
need
much
to work
semen
on. Like,
right now,
fuck?
so I'm constipated. That's what he said.
Yeah. It's too much protein.
Little
in my
call
diet.
back.
So semen constipates you?
So he says,
Yeah, trust
we were
me,
like, wait
I
a
know.
second, what's the like, you don't know how to make lists, And Shawn goes, no, I don't know how to read lists. I don't know how to read, period. And we were like, holy fucking shit, Shawn doesn't know how to read. How do you launch the podcast? How do you, he's like, I have to
How
call
was I a
somebody.
teacher for 10 years? Not being able to
I
read.
know that.
It
Like
wasn't
you have
easy.
the book and you run your finger and have the class read it back to you. That's how we used to work back in the day. So me and Matteo like invested in a reading program.
Yeah.
It started with I said let's start with something simple. I said let's start with like the giving tree because there's something there about like nice. Matteo immediately went into Mein Kampf. He's like, get him Mein Kampf right now.
That's a callback. That's a good callback.
Have him understand the plight of his people contrasted to this little crazy man with a mustache. So fast forward to like right now, and Matteo and like Shawn has made so much headway in 5 years? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
it's a lot. And so Shawn said, you know what, guys? And this was a week ago. I'm going to try reading a comic book. And me and Matteo are like, you're going to combine
happening.
words
It's happening.
and pictures at the same time.
Yeah.
And Shawn's like, I'll try because the pictures help. And I was like, that makes a lot of sense. The pictures help. So Shawn read a comic book
I did.
a day ago, 2
Bravo.
days ago. But he started... I know, it's awesome. But just to give you context, he finished a day ago. He started late 2022. So Shawn, congratulations on finishing that comic
And
book.
he still didn't understand it. He just read the words.
No.
Right.
No. Comprehension's my next goal.
Yeah. We couldn't afford to pay for that component of the lessons. But Shawn, tell us about this comic book that you just finished. Took you 2 years to read.
Well, what I read was Phantom Road, based on your recommendation, Eric.
You're right on. How was it for you?
First thing I noticed is you were right. You tear through that thing so fast.
Yeah.
It is one of the most effortless reading experiences I've had in a comic, and that alone was a really nice accomplishment, I thought, on the creator's parts. I enjoyed it. Go ahead.
Yeah. Continue.
I was gonna say I enjoyed it. I mean, it's obviously just the first collection, so I don't know what's gonna happen next. But
What is that? The first 4 issues?
Yeah, first 5 issues. Yeah.
Oh, and
Eric,
just
what
for
were you gonna say?
the listeners, is by Jeff Lemire or Lemire. I don't know how to pronounce it.
Yeah, Lemire. I think it's Lemire.
And Gabriel Hernandez Walda. Or Valda.
Yeah.
I don't know
Yeah.
how to pronounce that either.
Yeah.
Which both
Yeah.
amazing in their respective, fields.
Absolutely. Eric,
Yeah.
what were you going to say?
I was going to ask, I have my theory about, why it was such a pleasure to read. And this, by the way, is applicable to a lot of different things. I want to hear from you guys. Why did you think it was so, why did you find so much delight in reading that book?
This is exactly what I wanted to talk about. I have a lot of questions on it. Why was it pleasurable? It was like, it was easy. It was inviting. I guess one of my main complaints about comics these days is they're jam-packed with words and panels and overstuffed imagery that they're really, it's like you have to unpack every page you read, and it becomes a lot of effort. So the story gets lost in the effort of trying to take in all the information. This had a really nice balance of visual information and very few words. I can't even remember a single word balloon that was more than
have to read that
2 or 3
That's
sentences.
why I think. Yeah.
Sorry, Shawn, go ahead.
And it was just it was told very. It was very clear. The clarity of the whole thing from the writing to the visual storytelling. Well, it was right there. It unfolded and flowed.
You know where he's coming from, right? Like, what's the last thing that you remember where you were reading it and you were like, whoa, I went through that super, like, you know what I mean? Like, you went through it super quick and it almost feels like, yo, that's over already. Did you remember the last book that you went through?
I gotta think about it, but I remember, for example, and funny enough, it's still Jeff Lemire. It was the beginning of Black Hammer. That whole introduction with this, team of basically superheroes, and they're basically I don't know what happened there. They forgot that they used to be a superhero team or something.
Yeah.
Or something like that.
Well, they're in a mental prison. They're in like a mental prison.
Yeah, they're in a mental prison. That's what happened. And so they're gonna be at the beginning. There's all this, going back and forth between the characters, and you got to try to understand what's going on. It was beautiful. It was super, like, as Shawn said, inviting is the right word. And I don't know. Every time we talk about this kind of things, it makes me think about the difference between people that can tell a story aside from comic books in general. Like, sometimes there's some people that can tell you a really simple story that doesn't really mean anything in the end of the day, but they're so able to involve you with the rhythm, with the words that they pick, with everything. They kind of manage to draw you in the story, and sometimes there's people there that have really interesting things to say and really great ideas, but they don't know how to make it interesting. After like 2 minutes of hearing them talking, you want to, shoot yourself in the balls, So.
It's so dark. Here's what the last time I remember, going back to my question, the last time I remember reading something that made me go like that went super quick. And again, it's not because I didn't read anything between then that had that same effect on me. I think the enjoyment factor is so broad and it's so, like, subjective, right? I remember reading Uncanny X-Force by Rick and just going through that, going like, wow, this is so much.
That's another one.
This is so much fun to read, and it's a super, like, again, it's independent of genre. It's independent of, like, superheroes and crime noir and blah blah blah, right? How I see it is, like, what is it that makes me sit here and just, like, read through this and it feels effortless? That's that's one small component of the enjoyment factor, right? The last time I remember really sitting down going like, fuck, that went by so fast, I need to read it again, was the first Sin City. Like, after I read Sin City, I was like, why is this so fast? And there's a couple of crossover. There's a couple of things that overlap there, Shawn. Number one, Sin City wasn't packed with a ton of dialogue or caption or whatever it is, right? But it wasn't, and this is the same for Phantom Road. It's probably going to be like a Jeff Lemire appreciation episode. It's got a lot to do with good writers understand how to write good characters. They have they know when to feature a characterization and then when to feature plot and story with characterization at the second level or third level of whatever it is that's happening, right? What I mean by that is most recently in Sin City's case, there's Marv, and you understand. And by the way, Walter does so much heavy lifting for that story, right? So it's a lot of that.
It's deceiving. It's deceiving. His work is very deceiving.
Because it's not bombastic.
Simplicity.
You know what I mean?
That's
the difference between like Sin City and Phantom Road. Sin City has a tendency to be like in your face because it's just like on or off. You know what I mean? It's very binary in its rendering. So immediately you're like, whoa, this thing is so stark. It's so contrast that there's this experience that's appropriate to the story, but Walter's stuff on Phantom Road is so subtle. You don't understand how good, like at its face value, unless you're paying attention, you don't understand how good all those drawings are. And that really does help with the storytelling and the characterization. So I think that's another small component of why is this so pleasurable to read?
Also, I don't think that the dialogue, sorry to interrupt, Shawn, just
go ahead,
really quick think about the dialogues. Sometimes dialogues can be like longer than other times, as long as there's a reason why you're doing it. And if the reason, for example, is that we need to hear a specific character's voice and the way they talk, for example, just one example out of 1,000 different examples, it serves the story, so it works, so it's doesn't have to be every time. It doesn't have to be all the fat has gotta be taken out. Sometimes you can leave the fat, and if it's in specific moments where they're needed.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think there was that kid when we did the live show that was asking, "Hey, what panels do I pick for the story that I'm about to tell?" Do you remember that? He was asking how do I choose my shot? And I think that this goes back to what we're talking right now, which is the dialogue can do a lot of the heavy lifting for that thing. And you're supposed to go, conceptually, those things go hand in hand. They're complementary to each other, But there are times when, and then I'll use the PDF that you shared with us a couple of days ago, Maddie. I jokingly said this, okay, when I was looking through those images because they were so fucking well drawn. I don't know what high you're on right now, but maintain this high, pal. Keep doing whatever this is. Never go back to Mr. Freeze again. Don't do that. You don't need it anymore. You don't
knew you were about to say it.
You know what I mean? You don't need. What I'm saying is, whatever it is that you thought was a good idea that you were doing for Mr. Freeze, I'm glad you said, "Oh, that was the worst fucking idea. Let me not do that and do this PDF instead." So here it is. When I saw this book, I was like, "Fuck, this is so good." He's clearly at the front door, if not crossed the threshold into mastery as far as this stuff is concerned. I jokingly said this to myself. Now watch this motherfucker ruin this shit with dialogue. You know what I mean?
It's gonna happen, man.
Watch him ruin this shit. I know, man. Like, watch him ruin this shit by putting the wrong fucking dialogue in these people's. Like, the experience, and by the way, I admittedly am very biased, but I love your artwork. So when I'm seeing you just draw, right? It's as close to like the first time I saw Claire Wendling's art, where I was like, Jesus, this is so fucking good. Right? The thing that ruins it is when you open your mouth. You know what I mean? Like, don't fuck this up.
Like in real life.
Stupid shit in this side. Yeah. Like, it's like being a fan of yours in real life. Like, oh my gosh, there's Matteo. He's done Hulk. He's done Deadpool. He's done all this stupid shit. He's done Secret Avengers. Oh man, I can't wait to meet him. And you meet him and he's like, "Hey, you fucking stupid idiot." And you're like, "Oh shit, man. No, that's a really, really bad idea."
Well, just so you know, all 180 pages of my book, the characters are just going to talk about hockey. Just so you know.
Jason will love it.
It's nice that you want to sell only 5 copies. That's pretty cool, man. Shawn, what were you about to ask?
I was going to ask, after reading it or during reading it, did it make you reflect on your approach to comics in your art?
Oh, you're talking about Phantom Road or Matteo's work?
Yeah, Phantom Road.
Yeah. I'll speak to both, right? When I saw Matteo's stuff, currently I'm still going through it, where I'm at a, not a psychological low, but there's definitely like something off kilter with me, where I'm still trying to figure it out. I'm still trying to pinpoint it. It could be just a vitamin deficiency, to be perfectly honest with you.
Or maybe all the darkness inside of you.
You live in the Pacific Northwest. You need to go to Miami Beach for a week and get some sun, and you're going to feel much better.
All right, listen. It may be mental, it may be physiological, whatever it may be. But when I saw the pages from Matteo, I was like, fuck man, this is so good. Right.
Yeah.
And there is that not competitive side, but you guys know where I'm coming from.
Yeah.
In a group of people, especially when you're sharing a space with people, not necessarily physically, but just in a concept of community. Right, it reinvigorates you to go like, well, I better get the fuck out of bed and go do my version of this thing, which is a clear delineation of what other people do whenever they see somebody else's work and they're like, fuck, well, I give up. You know what I mean? That's not like, that's a weird jab step into this, like, that's so weird. Why would you want to give up after seeing amazing work? It's because they don't make the connection. They don't have the mechanism to go, that's awesome for Matteo. I'm going to do the awesome version for myself. You know what I mean? Like, so I'm going to get now. So that's what it did for me. It was like, I better get up and go do the version for me that's like really, really freaking amazing. You know, being inspired by that. So that's one.
When I saw nowhere near Walter's mine, work, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, if that helps you sleep at night, that's amazing. Okay, so here's as far as Walter's work is concerned, when I saw it, it wasn't anything in there that made me go like, that's so like, again, similar when I saw Uncanny X-Force. There was something that Jerome was doing in there where I was like, Jesus fucking Christ, this guy, Or something as revolutionary, to me, something mind-blowing about Sin City. Like, what the fuck did he do? He just turned everything on or off, The level of, like, mastery that you would have to have understanding of, like, black and white in there.
Yeah.
It wasn't that. It was, for me, in Phantom Road, it was the storytelling.
That's exactly it. Yeah.
It was purely just like here's the thing. I think you get to a point where you can draw a really, really pretty picture. And this goes back to Matteo's PDF. When you know how to make people behave like people, draw them behaving like people, I think that's, again, right at the doorstep of mastery. I think you can draw a pretty picture of people just like standing or, relaxing or, like people always go, oh, that looks too stiff. That looks like it's not actionful. And I'm like, those are great pieces of feedback.
Right.
But when you can make people act like people, and it means, whatever story that Matteo has in his head, he's actually visually expressing that through the actions of his drawings. That's what Walter had. And it complemented everything. There was nothing in there that was like, that didn't quite land,
Right.
What do you think, Shawn?
I felt the exact same way, and I'm trying to really wrap my head around it. It reminds me of when I was a kid and I read Born Again, and I was 15 at the time, and like McFarlane was like my shit, and it was all flash and in your face and balls to the wall, fun, like exciting imagery. And then I read Born Again and I loved it. And I remember like explaining to my friends like, the art's not so great, so I don't know why I like it so much. And it was over time and, maturing, I learned like, well, actually the art is phenomenal, but it's also serving the story. And this book kind of took me back to that space because like, when I read it, I was like, I look at my work, I look at how I do things, and I make things so difficult in the name of trying to do good, and I realize like that is probably a backwards ass way of thinking after reading this book, because there's nothing in Gabriel's work that jumps out at me like you said, like with Matteo's, and it's good we're talking about Matteo's book alongside of it, because Matteo's work, it works on the same level as Walter, where the storytelling's amazing, the acting, everything's great, but there's also the artist in me can really dig into the compositions and the drawing, and there's like a spice to it. I don't know what other word to put to it, a seasoning on it, like you said about Miller's work in Sin City. And Walt is able to just strip all that away, and it just becomes a story at that point. And it's made me really think about what I do and how I do it, because looking at it, it's like it looks effortless and it looks like it'd be easy, but it can't be.
Let me speak to that. I know that Matteo has a point here. Matteo, like here's the quote unquote problem with that PDF that Matteo sent us, right? It's deceptively like the style, because you and I, we're fans of Matteo's work. We're fans of his style, right? Like, so if you just look at it from the draftsmanship, just pure drawing, you can spend all day looking at that PDF. Like, I will look at that PDF and go like, okay, he's doing something with like the rendering of the face now, where he's like doing these little slashes that go towards the center of the face. That's a great stylistic nuance that I haven't seen really super heavy duty in his work. There are, he's understanding planes of the faces now instead of just like putting the blop down or whatever it is. So I can look at it purely. He blopped back in the day, less bloppy these days. So like, there's things in there where I will look at it purely from the construction and execution of art, and that is like, it's so superficial. In a way, right? But I mean, like, if you take a look at it, you look at it and you go like, this guy clearly knows how to draw and he's getting better at drawing. What gets me caught up is how those drawings are complementing the composition, the lighting, all of the drawings. Cool. That's great. That's very textbook, as good as it is. By the way, that's not diminishing your ability to draw, Matty. You're an amazing draftsman.
No. You're perfectly clear on that.
At its there's a substrata that you go like, fuck, what a great shot. You know what I mean? Like, what a great composition of faces. What a great composition of like this city street. What a great omission of detail, if that makes any sense. Like, you just leave that part out because it's not really all that important. And I think similarly, and that's the part that really is like the quote unquote bad part of Phantom Road and Walter's work, is you don't understand how difficult storytelling is when it's done that well, if that makes any sense. Right. I've seen Dave Fincher's movies when I feel like, and I don't know the man, I just see the final expressions of his work. I feel like when I see it, I'm like, oh, that's a try hard version of Fincher. When he does like, the not try hard version of himself, I'm like, holy shit, look how fucking good those shots are. Look how amazing some of these shots are. So here's an example. I don't know if you guys have seen that Netflix show called Midnight Mass. Have you seen that?
No, that's on my to watch list, but I have still to watch it.
Watch it. Okay. Great.
Is it?
It's a show by Walter Flanagan. He's a great, guy of like suspense and horror. Great premise too. I don't want to ruin it for you, but I think you'll really, it's a series too, Shawn, so you can have it playing in the background. Okay. Great thing to get into. His most recent thing, which I sidestepped because why do I want to fucking, like, in my head, I thought when I saw the title, I was like, I don't want to know anything about this hip hop star. Like, it's called The Fall of the House of Usher. Immediately I thought like Usher, like the R&B singer. I'm like, no, it's not that. It's his most recent offering. Right. Again, along the same lines, but it's I like Midnight Mass more, but it doesn't mean anything bad about the House of Usher. I've got to get through it still. But here's the one thing. I think it's this, to my point earlier was, I think it was him it's the try hard version of him, right? Because if you take a look at what's happening on screen, my wife and I were watching it going like, how the fuck did he shoot this movie and why does it look so beautiful? Right? Yeah. He still has it. I think he just overdid it. In Midnight Mass, it's still shot so freaking well. The color palette is great. The compositions are great. So going back to the original point of the conversation, it's misleading. Yeah. Because people, and I want to go back to the point that I was making, which was like the bad version of this is people are going to get caught up looking at these drawings and saying how fucking great this is, not realizing this is greater than the drawings.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like Matteo like invites you like a drug dealer look at these pretty drawings, you know?
Right.
But then what keeps you there, if you know what you're looking at, is the joy that you're experiencing as you're reading through it, similar to Walter in Phantom Road.
Yeah,
I
well,
also
especially
noticed
here.
Walter-
Sorry, Sean. Just real quick.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Especially here, because I don't have a lot of, you know, I don't have a lot of action and really, you know, cool comic book stuff to support me there. So I gotta use that thing in order to keep you there. As you just you know, I'm continuing the concept that you were expressing, basically. So that's what I try to do. So I'm glad that you noticed that, because you know, there's a lot of dialogue, especially issue number 1. It's a lot of you know, trying to get to know the main characters and the relationships between them. So I had to find a way to make it interesting and, you know, and attracting in some sort of way. So yeah,
I get it. Yeah. In Phantom Road, there are these instances where I get more about the character. So, like, you know, writing characterization to me is one of my bigger challenges. I'm not a experienced writer, right? Yeah. But one of the things that I'd come to realize after reading a lot of the things that I really super like, characterization is less about the statement, right? Hey, I come from this kind of background, blah blah blah. Like that's stage 1, or that's phase 1, or whatever it is in your development as a writer and a storyteller. I think a lot of characterization comes from reaction. Right? Like,
yeah, I was about to say the same.
I understand that character. Yeah, I understand that character so much. I can understand how they are raised, brought up, whatever it is, their perspective on the world, because they're reacting to this thing very specifically. But as a writer, you have to build in that moment so that they can react to it, as opposed to volunteering that information, which seems really awkward and less than organic. You know what I mean? Phantom Road does that, right? I understand why those characters are reacting to each other. Not because they're saying, you know, hey, you're weird, you're different, you know, blah, blah, blah. These are your worldviews or whatever it is. I don't like you. It's not that. Lemire wrote a situation in which two people can react to it specifically, and then you go like, I get it, right? I understand why those people are, or I get a better insight to those to how those people are, and slowly you know, there's more information that happens, you know. I don't need to understand all of them all right now. I just need to understand just enough of them so that, you know, it forwards the story. Shawn?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
I was going to say one other thing with reading Phantom Road. Like, I noticed the camera is pretty much eye level every single shot.
Sure.
There's no real down shots. There's no real up shots, and there's no real like in your face shots. Like all these things that I would spend extra time trying to nail. And after reading that, I'm just asking myself, is that necessary? Like, and like someone like you, Eric, where your shots are so dynamic in range. What did you think of Phantom Road through that lens?
It goes back to that advice that I gave to the kid, right? Like, we are in the information delivery business, right? A down shot means something, an up shot means something, a close up means something, right? So if that's what the shot facilitates, that's the shot that I draw. Now in Arcathena, I crank it up to 20 because it's a superhero book, you know?
Sure. Okay.
So all the shots are dynamic. Well, not all the shots, but like, you know, whenever it's possible, whenever it's necessary. But at its core, if I were to strip away all the detail and all the fucking rendering, right, it's still the shot that's appropriate to the story, you know? So it wasn't to me that the shots in Phantom Road were like, not necessarily boring or like flat or whatever it was. First of all, I think that's a conscious choice. You know, I think there's a couple of shots in there where I saw a down shot, but that's the reason why I saw that down shot is because Walter saw it and said, like, Walter read the script and was like, this is the shot that I need to give this information. You know,
right.
And I think that's when people get lost a lot. I'm like, wait, that's really super disjointed. And that's why, again, that's another component to the pleasure of reading something is because as a reader, I'm actively trying to understand something, right? I want to know something, and that's why I'm here. The moment I look at something and go like, I'm not getting anything out of that, right? So now you become sort of like It just takes you out of the story, first of all, because you're like, I don't know what the heck is happening. I don't understand why that shot was chosen. Like, I am trying to see, whenever I draw, and I hope this is true for like our quest into becoming better draftsmen and storyteller, like I always look at like, what does the audience need to see?
Yep.
Right? What is it that they expect to see? And as soon as I change that, that is actually active. I go like, this is what you're expecting to see. I'm going to switch that on you. Right. And this is now what you're seeing. And people are like, whoa, that's weird. You know, that's like, oh, that's fucking great. Or that fucking works. Right. So I think to answer your question, like it wasn't off-putting because as an active audience, as an active reader, I was getting everything that I needed to understand.
Exactly.
Moving one panel to the other. And that's why it goes so fast because I'm like, I need to see this, or like I'm expecting to see this. I need to see this. Cool. I got that, moving on.
He was able to just pare everything down to just this essential information and present it in the easiest, most digestible way so you can just keep moving.
Yeah, I think so. That's also misleading, right? Whenever we say something like that, like pare something down to like its essential thing, comparing Matteo's work, the most recent thing that he sent us, to Phantom Road, Matteo's a little, got more detail. It's got more, it's got more texture. It's just got more stuff in it, right?
Right.
Paring something down, it could genuinely mean you did everything in Sin City, where you just made everything either on or off, black or white.
Right.
That's a great way of like understanding what paring something down. But what we're talking about is information, right? Information could mean rendering, right? It could mean that, but that's not. I think in this case, that's not what you're talking about. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it's like, why are you putting that thing there? Paring as much information down as much as possible. Walt is like just as detailed as it's not inconsistent to his work. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But I think when he it's just like adding the thing that you need and then realizing, is that enough? And if you want to pile it on thereafter, that's cool. It doesn't ruin anything because you've come from a place of minimalism to begin with. Am I landing the thing that I need to that I need to communicate? And if I put on 10 more things, if I put on 2 more things, does that detract from what I wanted to see? And I think that's where the danger, quote unquote, of where Matteo's work is coming from, because people will get caught up on how well drawn it is, not realizing, dude, that guy picked that perfect shot for that panel,
Right.
Again, don't fucking ruin it with words. Shut the fuck up. You know what I mean? Like,
silent book
don't
it is.
Put more bubbles. Yeah. Or here's one, right? Put the bubbles in the back. You know what I mean? Put them as a supplement.
So no. I got it. I got it. I mean? This is gonna be the future. The future of comic books. You put a small number, like for page 1, it's gonna be 1A, 1B, 1-3 on the page. Yeah. And then you gotta go back to the back of the book. We have all the dialogues.
I love
that.
You need a secret decoder ring to read it.
I love it.
Or
you put
Matteo,
buttons.
what you should do
You put buttons in there, so you push them, and there's the dialogue with actual actors, like voice actors. I mean, a book is gonna be costing like $2,000 each, but
it's worth it. So worth it. What you got to do is you got to release like the actual edition with no words. This is the book. And then you release the Dumb Shark edition where you put the words in.
Yeah, that might be.
You get the one that you call it the Prestige. Yeah, you do the Prestige version in which you just leave everything black and white as is, and then you do the version. This is just the title in my head. Matteo fucking ruins it. You know what I mean? And then that's the version. That's the version.
Remember, we were talking earlier, like before starting to record, like on WhatsApp. We were talking about. I shared with you a possible title for my book, but now that you gave me this one, I'm gonna stick with that.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, it will listen. It's gonna move so many fucking units. I'm not going to guarantee it, but I think it will. All right, that's an hour.
Yeah, so let me just say real quick, great job on Phantom Road Volume 1. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Can't wait for the second.
Looking for... this is the cynical in me. This is the dead... By the way, Matteo, you need to read this book, and I want to hear your perspective on it.
I'm buying it. As soon as we stop recording, I'm going to buy it immediately.
Okay.
Yeah, you'll read it in 15 minutes.
It'll go fast. It'll go fast. But
Yeah.
here's the lump of coal of a heart that I have on the inside of my chest. As good as Phantom Road is, right?
Uh-oh.
Like, I really hope 6 through whatever is just as good. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't want to diminish either of those creators' like ability, but I'm like, that's so good. I wonder if they should just leave it alone. There's more story to it.
Just stop.
leave it alone.
I'm out.
Yeah, just leave it alone.
It's like
It's
the
same
first
feeling that I
season
got-
of Heroes. Just stop with season number 1.
Yeah.
Just stop.
Yeah. It's like Stranger Things. You know what I mean? I was
Yeah,
like,
exactly,
that was so good
exactly.
season 1. Don't do another one. That
Yeah,
kind of
just
a
stop.
thing.
Just stop.
Ghostbusters 1. You know, like just leave it alone. All right, you guys. That's an hour. Thank you for
All right,
your
word.
time. I'm gonna hit the stop button now.
Bye.